You want to know the moment he never sees coming? It's not when you touch him, not when you moan, not even when you climax. It's when you bite, right before you finish. That moment rewrites the entire story of the night, and most women don't even know the power they're holding back. There's something electric about the unexpected. When you unleash your passion without apology, you don't just please a man, you awaken him. In this video, we'll explore the deeper meaning behind that final, raw expression of desire. This isn't just about sex, it's about impact, influence, and becoming unforgettable. When you bite right before you finish, it's not just a moment of surprise. It's a declaration. It's a symbol. You're not merely reacting to the heat of the moment. You're expressing something far deeper. Most women have been conditioned to believe that their role is to receive, to accommodate, to respond. But the truth is, when you bite, even just softly, it signals something far more powerful, that you are a force in your own right. You are not waiting for permission. You are not asking him to lead every step. You are not content with just being touched, pleased, or adored. You are announcing that you are there. You are feeling this moment too. And you're not going to be polite about it. The bite isn't just physical, it's emotional. It communicates that you are not ashamed of wanting, not shy about your passion, not hesitant to leave a mark. That small, sudden act is your way of saying, I feel this too, and I'm not here to fade into the background. Think about how rare that is in a world where women, especially those over 50, are often taught to soften themselves, to take up less space, to be good, gentle, safe. That training runs deep, but desire doesn't thrive in safety. It thrives in the raw, the real, the unrehearsed. When you bite, you're stepping out of performance and into presence. You're not playing a role. You're being you, fully embodied in a moment of true release. And here's the thing, he doesn't expect it. That's part of why it's so unforgettable. In a world where everything feels scripted, where he's had partners who go through the motions, follow the steps, stay in line, the bite tells him, this woman is not like the others. She's not here to be predictable. She's not afraid to express what's inside. And that changes everything. It jolts him out of his mind and into the moment. It makes him pay attention, not just to your body, but to your power. It's not about aggression. It's not about pain. It's about expression. It's the kind of raw expression that says, I'm alive, I feel this, and I'm not holding back. That level of intensity stays with a man. He might forget how long it lasted or what words were said, but he'll remember the bite because that moment broke the pattern. It tore through the usual. It left a mark, not just on his skin, but on his psyche. And more than that, it showed him something rare, a woman who is fully in her body, fully in her power, and unafraid to take a moment and claim it as her own. So many women, especially with age, begin to internalize the idea that they should diminish themselves, that they should settle into roles of comfort and predictability. But that's not who you are at your core. You are passion, you are instinct, you are complexity and fire. The bite is a physical metaphor for all of that. It says, I am still wild, I am still untamed, I still feel with everything inside me. And that kind of message doesn't need to be spoken in words. It's felt deeply. Even more, that moment teaches you something too. It reminds you that your body is not a stage, it's a voice, a living, breathing, expressive force. You don't just lie back and wait for the story to end. You write the final sentence yourself. And when you do that, when you bite, when you let go, when you release, you step into a version of yourself that is fearless, powerful, electric. You may not even plan it. The best moments rarely are. Maybe it happens without thought, just pure feeling. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it resonate. Because in that second, you're not trying to be anything for anyone. You're not trying to please. You're simply being. And that level of authenticity cuts deeper than any well-rehearsed act ever could. The bite is a mirror. It reflects your inner truth. It reflects your confidence, your desire, your refusal to fade out quietly. And it reflects a deeper truth to him, too, that you are not a woman who goes unnoticed. You are not a woman who finishes in silence. You are not a woman who forgets herself. You remember, you claim, you bite. And long after the night is over, long after the sheets are cold, he will think about that moment, not because it was violent or shocking, but because it was real. And real is rare, real is magnetic, real is what separates an experience from a memory and a woman from the woman. You don't bite to scare him. You bite because you feel so much, you can't contain it anymore. And when you express that freely, without shame, without apology, you step into a truth that most women never dare to fully own. That truth, you are not just part of the experience, you are the experience. And once he sees that, feels that, he'll never look at you the same again. There's a part of a man that no logic, no words, no conversation can ever reach. A place older than thought, deeper than reason. It's the primitive brain, the ancient part of his mind that responds not to politeness or social cues, but to sensation, instinct, and raw emotional impact. When you bite him, right at the peak, right before you finish, it's that part of his brain you speak to. Not the part that calculates or evaluates, but the part that remembers, the part that reacts. The part that doesn't need to be told what it means because it feels what it means. You see, long before civilization, before love poems and first dates, before manners and expectations, there was only connection, pure physical, animal connection. And in those moments of intimacy, what mattered most wasn't language, it was energy, intensity, passion. When you bite him in the heat of climax, you bring him back to that place. You shatter the walls of civilization for just a second and invite him into something primal, something honest, something he can't fake or fight. That bite, even if it's soft, is a signal. It's a flare shot into his subconscious saying, this is real. This woman is not playing. She's not acting. She's not reciting a script from some romantic movie. She's feeling. And she's letting her body speak the truth her mouth could never fully express. That kind of moment jolts a man, not in fear, but in awe. Because what you've done is rare. You've bypassed every surface level interaction he's ever had and gone straight to the part of him that hungers, not just for sex, but for meaningful sex, for memorable connection, for visceral intimacy. And the truth is, most women never go there, not because they can't, but because they've been trained to suppress that side, to make love pretty, not powerful, to be gentle, not gripping. But when you let that inner wildness slip through, not violently, but intentionally, you break the pattern, you become the exception, the unexpected. And that's what the primitive brain lives for, not the routine, not the ordinary, but the disruption, the spark, the surprise that leaves a lasting imprint. Men don't consciously walk around saying, I hope she bites me tonight. It's not on a checklist. It's not in a fantasy script. But when it happens, when that raw electric expression pierces through the moment, it triggers a biological memory, an unspoken recognition, not just her truth, but his own. Because it's not just about being bitten. It's about being seen in the chaos, in the hunger, in the moment when everything else fades and nothing else exists. That bite, in its timing, its passion, its unpredictability, awakens a man to the fact that he is not just having sex. He is inside a moment of meaning, a moment he didn't expect, a moment he will carry with him. Even days later, he might touch the spot on his shoulder, his neck, his chest, wherever your bite landed, and feel the memory pulse through him. Not just because of the sensation, but because of the message that came with it. The message that said, I feel you, I want you, but I'm not afraid to express that. And that, more than any word you could whisper, tells him you're not a passive player in his life. You're a presence, a force, a woman who knows what she wants and has the courage to show it in the most instinctive, unforgettable way. The primitive brain doesn't care about awkwardness. It doesn't overthink. It doesn't analyze. It reacts. And what it craves more than perfection is authenticity. That's why the bite lands so deeply. Because in a world of filtered affection, curated responses, and predictable patterns, it's a burst of reality. It reminds him that he's not just a body in a bed. He's in an encounter with something real, something passionate, something alive. And that memory doesn't fade. It becomes a story he tells himself in silence, a standard he starts to measure others against without even knowing it, not because it was extreme, but because it was undeniable, because it was you, untamed and unafraid, speaking to the oldest part of him in a language that has no words. So no, he doesn't expect you to bite right before you finish. But when you do, or you don't just finish the moment, you etch it into him. And long after it's over, that part of him, the ancient, instinctive part, will still be listening. For too long, the ending of intimacy has been treated like it belongs to him. He finishes, and the moment is over. He lets go, and the curtain drops. But you're not here to be a background dancer in his performance. You're not just waiting for your turn, for his rhythm to dictate your experience. When you bite right before you finish, you are not simply participating. You're taking command of the final act. You are declaring, this moment belongs to me too. You're not an accessory to his climax. You are the author of your own. And that matters, because endings shape how we remember everything that came before. The final beat, the closing note, it leaves the deepest impression. When you seize that last second with intensity, when you bite, not out of politeness, but from deep awakened desire, you transform the narrative. You're no longer a passenger, you're the driver. You're not being taken, you're arriving, fully, completely, unapologetically. Too many women, especially those taught to be pleasing, internalize the idea that the man sets the pace, that when he finishes, it's time to wind down, time to tidy up, time to disappear softly. But that conditioning has stolen something sacred, the power to own your finish, to be the one who not only experiences pleasure, but who claims it. And that bite, that's not just a reaction, it's your signature on the final page. It's you saying, I don't fade out, I leave a mark. And let's be clear, this isn't about performance. This isn't about doing something sexy because you think it'll impress him. It's the opposite. It's about breaking the idea that sex is something you do for him. It's about returning to yourself, to the pulse of your own body, and letting your truth rise naturally, instinctively, without apology. The bite becomes the symbol of that shift, that you're not waiting for a finish that's handed to you. You take it, you define it, you own it. And the power in that, it's magnetic, because men may not always understand it consciously, but they feel it. They feel when a woman isn't just going through the motions. They feel when the climax isn't something that happens to her, but something that erupts from her, something deliberate, fierce, alive. That moment becomes unforgettable, not just for the act itself, but for the message it sends. I am not here to disappear. I am here to rise and leave something behind. You bite and it says, don't you dare forget this. You finish and it says, I'm not waiting for you to decide when it's over. You take back the finish line and suddenly the entire experience shifts from one-sided to shared, from scripted to real, from polite to powerful. Because in that moment, when your body trembles, when your breath catches, when your teeth sink softly into his shoulder, neck, or chest, you're not just feeling pleasure. You're owning it. You're showing him and yourself that you're not here to perform. You're not here to follow his lead every time. You are here as a whole, a live, awakened woman who refuses to go unnoticed in the moment that matters most. And here's the beautiful twist. When you take back the finish line, you don't take anything away from him. You invite him into something deeper. You pull him into a kind of intimacy that's rare. He doesn't just walk away feeling good. He walks away feeling changed because he's not used to a woman who finishes like that, who leaves her soul in the final seconds, who marks the end with passion and intent. You don't just close the moment, you crown it. You don't just climax, you claim it. And in doing so, you stop being a partner who blends in and become a woman he remembers. Because the finish line was never his to begin with. It was always yours. And now you're taking it back with fire. Predictability is comfort, but it is never unforgettable. And when it comes to desire, comfort is not what leaves a man awake at night thinking about you. Predictability is routine. It's the well-worn script, the expected steps, the smile that looks just like last time. But when you bite right before you finish, when you show him a flash of your untamed self in a moment he thought would be ordinary, you shatter that script. And suddenly you become a question he can't stop asking. Because here's what most men have learned to expect: politeness, softness, silence, or at best a carefully curated version of passion that still plays by invisible rules. Even when things are good, they're often predictable. She'll kiss here, moan there, move like this, finish like that. The story plays out like it always has, but then you do something unscripted. You bite, not harshly, but with intent, with power, with soul. And now, the moment it doesn't feel like the others, now you don't feel like the others. He may not even realize it consciously, but something shifts in that moment. He realizes this woman doesn't follow the rules. She writes her own. And that realization is intoxicating, because deep down, every man is wired to crave challenge, mystery, and depth. He doesn't want a puzzle he can solve in one night. He wants a journey that keeps unfolding. And when you show him that you're not here to just play along, that you have your own rhythm, your own surprises, your own power, that's when you become more than a moment. You become a presence. When you bite at the peak, when you seize that second with passion and unpredictability, you send a silent but unforgettable message. You haven't figured me out yet, and you never fully will. And that's not a threat. It's a gift, because it means there's more of you to discover. More fire, more depth, more soul. And in a world full of surface-level attraction, you offer something rare, depth that can't be tamed. Think about it. Most people repeat themselves, they get stuck in habits, they become easy to read. And the moment you're easy to read, you lose the mystery. You become another chapter in a story he's already read 100 times. But you shift the plot. You introduce a new language. You say through action, I'm not here to be expected. I'm here to be experienced. And that experience doesn't end when the night ends. That moment stays with him. It replays, it lingers, because it felt real, it felt alive, it felt unscripted, and therefore unforgettable. He can't put you in a category. He can't file you away. You don't fit into his old framework of what intimacy looks like, because you blew the walls off that framework with one small, shocking, soul-filled bite. This is what unpredictable women do. They wake people up. They make men feel again. Not because they're loud or dramatic, but because they're real. Because they don't filter themselves down to be liked. They show up fully, even if it means breaking the rhythm with something unexpected. And men remember that. Not because it was wild, but because it was truthful. And in truth, there is always mystery. There is always something more. And here's the part that no one talks about. When you show him that you're not predictable, you invite him to stop being predictable too. You give him permission to step out of autopilot, to stop being the man who just performs and start being the man who feels. Your unpredictability is liberating. It tells him, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. And that kind of freedom, that's rare. That's magnetic. So, yes, bite him, not just with your mouth, but with your energy. Let the moment break form. Let it surprise you both. Because in that one unexpected gesture, you'll teach him that you're not just another woman on the path of routine connection. You're the woman who shifted something in him. You made him realize that connection can be unpredictable and still safe, wild and still sacred. You made him feel more alive in 1 second than he has in a long time. And that is the gift of unpredictability. It doesn't just change the moment, it changes you in his mind, from familiar to unforgettable. There's a part of you that the world rarely sees, a part that doesn't smile for approval or wait to be chosen. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't play small. It doesn't hide behind polite words, carefully styled appearances, or perfectly timed gestures. That part of you is wild, untamed, ancient. And when you bite, softly, passionately, right before you finish, that's the moment it escapes. That's the moment you come through. Not the version of you the world expects, but the version of you that is raw, real, and absolutely unforgettable. The bite is never just a physical act, it's the unveiling of the fire that lives underneath your calm, beneath your structure, beneath your day-to-day self. It's a glimpse of your truth. And when he feels that truth, when he sees that untamed part of you rise to the surface, it shakes something in him, not in fear, but in fascination. Because that part of you, it's not rehearsed, it's not performative, it's not for the camera or the mirror, it's for you. And that's what makes it so powerful. Women are often taught to temper themselves. Be sweet, be composed, don't be too intense, too loud, too much. Over time, that message becomes internalized. So you wear the mask, you move through the world with grace. You do what's expected, and you do it well. But underneath it all, there's more, so much more. There's fire in your belly. There's hunger in your spirit. There's a deep primal instinct that's been waiting, aching for permission to break free. And in that final moment, when desire reaches its peak, when energy surges through your body, when logic fades, you bite. And everything changes, because for just a second, your untamed self steps forward. And you know what? That's the version of you he'll never forget. Not the one who said the right thing or looked perfect under soft lighting, but the one who felt so deeply that her body spoke without words. The one who didn't hold back, the one who claimed the moment without asking. That's the woman who haunts his thoughts. Because men don't just want beauty, they don't just want softness, they want truth, they want depth, they want to feel like they've touched something sacred, something rare. And that wild, instinctual moment, that bite, is a doorway, a crack in the surface that reveals the woman within, the woman who isn't afraid to feel, to burn, to surrender, to own her power. And the irony is, you don't have to do it for him. That's what makes it magnetic. You do it because it's real, because you've spent enough of your life dimming your light, because you've grown enough to know that your untamed self isn't something to suppress, it's something to honor. That bite, that surge of feeling, that bold move, it's not about control, it's about freedom. It's about letting the deepest parts of you breathe. It may only last a second, but what it says echoes. It says, I am not here to be predictable. I'm not here to give you what every other woman gave. I'm not here to simply be good. I am here to be real. And real women are not always gentle. They are not always soft. Sometimes they bite, sometimes they growl, sometimes they tremble and cry and scream and laugh, and they let it all be part of the experience. That's the woman who becomes unforgettable. The one who doesn't just make love, she shows up with all of herself. The one who doesn't shy away from passion, she lets it pour out of her without apology. That bite is a promise that there is more to you than meets the eye. That underneath the calm exterior, there's fire, mystery, instinct. And he knows in that moment that what he just experienced wasn't typical. It wasn't routine. It wasn't what he expected. Because what he just touched wasn't just your body, it was your essence, your spirit, your power. And that kind of contact, that's not something he forgets. That's the kind of woman he can't replace, because once you've seen the wild in someone and felt it, you don't look at them the same way again. So no, don't hide her, don't tame her, don't water her down. Let her rise, let her move, let her bite, and let that untamed part of you whisper into the moment, I'm still here, I've always been here. And in doing so, you don't just share pleasure, you share presence. You share you. And that is the most powerful gift a woman can ever give. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't have to make a speech to make a statement. Sometimes the most powerful moments in intimacy, the ones that alter the entire dynamic between a man and a woman, happen in complete silence. No warning, no explanation, just a bite. One intentional electric bite right before you finish. And in that moment, without saying a single word, the power shifts. Not in a way that overpowers him, but in a way that redefines the entire landscape of connection. Because he realizes something he didn't expect. You're not just part of this moment, you're shaping it. And that changes everything. Power, real power, is subtle. It doesn't need to dominate, it doesn't need to prove itself, it simply is. And when you bite, when you allow your body to speak with raw truth in the most intimate second, you don't take control with force, you take it with presence. You signal something ancient and undeniable, that your pleasure is not a performance, it's an act of ownership, that you are not waiting to be claimed. You are claiming the moment on your terms, in your way. Most men are used to leading. They're used to being the driver, the decider, the one setting the pace, and often they carry the quiet weight of expectation that they have to make it all happen, that they have to perform, satisfy, finish, and leave her feeling taken care of. And that's not necessarily bad. It can come from a place of love, but over time it builds a quiet pressure, a silent assumption that the pleasure is his job, that the ending is about him, that the power ultimately lies with him, until you disrupt that story, until you move differently, until you bite. In that moment, all the unspoken dynamics rearrange. He's no longer the sole conductor. Now you're writing music too. He's no longer the one giving, because you've just given something that can't be bought, faked, or anticipated. Your presence, your surrender, your truth. That bite becomes the punctuation at the end of a sentence only you could write. And he feels it, not just on his skin, but in his soul. He knows, without you needing to say a thing, that something deeper just happened, that you weren't waiting for him to make you feel, you felt. You weren't reacting to his passion, you were channeling your own. And that is what shifts the power. Not by taking anything away from him, but by lifting yourself up, not to compete, but to co-create. The moment now belongs to both of you, and he feels it. He's not the performer anymore. He's the witness to your fire. And here's the beauty of it. That kind of shift doesn't feel threatening. It feels liberating, because deep down, every man longs for a woman who can match him. Not in control, but in courage. Not in dominance, but in depth. A woman who doesn't wait for direction. She moves with her own rhythm. A woman who doesn't hide her edge. She lets it pierce the moment with grace and fire. That bite, it's not aggression, it's essence. It's the physical embodiment of a woman who isn't afraid to be seen in her most vulnerable, most powerful form. It's a whisper that says, I am not here to please, I am here to experience. And when a man feels that, truly feels it, something inside him wakes up, not his ego, his instinct, his awareness, his reverence. He sees you differently now, not as someone he took to bed, but someone he entered a moment with, someone who didn't just react to him, but met him, matched him, marked him, and all without a word. That's real power, the kind of power that lingers in the space between moments. The kind of power that makes him remember you not just with desire, but with respect. Because women who move with quiet power don't need to shout, they don't need to beg, they don't need to overcompensate, they simply are. And when they bite, when they take the moment into their own hands, mouths, hearts, they leave behind more than a memory. They leave behind a shift, a rebalancing of energy. A reminder that the most unforgettable women are not the loudest. They are the ones who move with fire and let their actions speak truths the world forgot. So no, you don't need to speak. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to ask for power. You already have it. And when you let it rise, when you let it bite, you show him exactly who you are. Not with noise, but with presence. And that is a power he'll never stop feeling. You were never meant to be soft all the time. You were never meant to fold yourself into something predictable, quiet, or convenient. You were born with fire in your blood, with instinct in your body, and with a truth that doesn't whisper, it pulses. And when you bite right before you finish, you awaken all of that. You stop being an observer of the moment and become its creator. You stop performing and start expressing. You stop asking, is this okay? And start declaring, this is mine. At one moment, a bite, a gasp, a bold move becomes more than just passion. It becomes identity. It becomes the proof that you're still here, still alive, still feeling. It's not about him. It's not about shocking him or pleasing him. It's about reclaiming your place in the most intimate part of your life. It's about reminding yourself that you are not just a partner, you are a force, a presence, a woman who doesn't fade out quietly but leaves echoes. He won't forget you. Not because you were louder, sexier, or more polished, but because you were real, because you let go in a way that most women are too afraid to, because you made that final moment yours. And when you do that, when you rise and bite and burn and surrender all at once, you don't just finish the night. You finish as a woman he will never stop remembering, not because of what you did, but because of who you became in that moment. Untamed, unapologetic, and unforgettable.